Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Brooklynite TV Podcast. We're going to continue to dig deep into the story that matters most. And today we're still on this unsettling topic that has been brewing for weeks, maybe months. If you've been paying close attention to the news, you know that something really concerning has been happening over New York and New Jersey and across the United States. A mysterious surge of drone activity. At first, I thought it was just some wild conspiracy theory. But as things have unfolded, the situation has become impossible to ignore. Could it really be what I speculated in earlier podcasts, that these drones are somehow connected to Iran? At the time, I was thinking it was a far-fetched idea. But now, watching a recent clip of a congressman speaking on the very issue, it's clear that these drones might very well be coming from an offshore mothership tied to Iran.
I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal.
And I got to tell you, folks, it's hard to know what to believe anymore. Before we dive deep into the details, make sure you hit that subscribe button, share this podcast with your friends, and leave a review to keep the conversation going. This issue is too big to ignore, and I'm betting you want to know more what's really going on here. So let's break it down. For weeks now, there's been a noticeable uptick in drones flying over major cities like New York and parts of New Jersey. These drones are not your average hobbyist gadgets. We're talking about military-grade high-tech machines that are capable of surveillance, reconnaissance, and potentially much worse. The question on everybody's mind is, who is behind this? Where are they coming from? And more importantly, what are they doing here? At first, this situation didn't seem like much more than a technological nuisance. Sure, there were some concerns about privacy and potential threats, but nothing that truly screamed national emergency. But as time has passed, the scope of the situation has grown, and we are now dealing with something far more serious than just a handful of rogue drones. We're talking about an organized and sustained effort, and it's starting to look like an involvement of a foreign nation is no longer just speculation. It's hard to ignore the idea that these drones could be connected to Iran. When I first mentioned this theory in an earlier podcast, people thought I was reaching, pulling at straws. It seemed far-fetched. After all, why would Iran be sending drones over to U.S. soil? But as the evidence starts to mount, it's harder to dismiss the possibility. But then I saw this recent clip of a congressman stating what many of us already are wondering. These drones appear to be coming from an offshore mothership, and yes, it looks like Iran may be involved. The more we dig into the situation, the clearer it becomes that we may be facing a foreign invasion of sorts. Not with boots on the ground, but with high-tech drones gathering intelligence on U.S. soil. This is a blatant violation of our airspace, and it's happening right under our noses. And let's talk about the real issue here, the complete and utter failure of the Biden administration to address this crisis to begin with. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Joe Biden's leadership is a disaster. This country is being invaded by an adversary like Iran, and what does President Biden do? Absolutely nothing. He's sitting idly by while our skies are swarmed with foreign drones, allowing the situation to escalate without any real action on his part. It's honestly unfathomable to think about this. We're talking about the possibility of an enemy nation gathering critical data over our cities, unchallenged, while our president looks the other way. Imagine the damage these drones could be causing if they're allowed to keep gathering information. If this is Iran behind it, what's next? Are they mapping out our defenses, gathering intel for a future attack? The possibilities are terrifying, and yet the Biden administration remains inactive. It's not just frustrating, it's dangerous, and I don't know how anyone could defend this lack of response. We're talking about national security here, people. Drones in our airspace potentially sent by an adversary like Iran, and Joe Biden is just sitting back doing nothing. How could anyone, Democrat or Republican, justify this incompetence? The reality is that the Biden administration is failing on every front, and this situation is just another example of their ineptitude. This is without a doubt the worst presidency this country has ever seen in modern times. The Biden administration has failed to secure our borders, failed to stand up to adversities like Iran, and now it's failing to protect the U.S. citizens from an aerial invasion. If these drones continue to operate unchecked, we are essentially inviting a direct threat to our national safety, and we cannot afford to let this continue. So what happens when Joe Biden finally leaves office? And it can't come soon enough. But the real question is what will happen under the leadership of Donald Trump, who's coming back in January. He has said very little about these drones so far, but here's what I do believe. Trump is not going to sit idly by like Biden has. Trump will take decisive action. He will not allow these threats to go unchecked. Think about it. Under Trump, the U.S. didn't back down from foreign aggression. Trump wasn't afraid to take bold steps to protect American interests, and he certainly wasn't afraid to go after countries like Iran when they stepped out of line. If these drones are coming from Iran, don't expect Trump to ignore the situation like Joe Biden. I fully expect him to strike back hard. And honestly, this may be the turning point in dealing with Iran's nuclear aspirations. Iran is not just threatening our security with these drones. They're a major player in the Middle East, and they've long been working on their nuclear program. And if it turns out that these drones are part of a broader strategy by Iran, Trump will act, and he will take out key Iranian infrastructure. The U.S. will not be passive under a Trump administration. And if these drones are part of a larger plan to undermine our nation, Trump will deal with it swiftly and decisively. Unlike Biden, who has proven to be weak, Trump will make sure Iran knows that they cannot mess with the United States without facing serious consequences. This isn't just about drones in the sky. This is about protecting our sovereignty and our national security. And if these drones are coming from Iran, we are looking at a potential clash that could reshape the geopolitical landscape. Trump will not hesitate to protect American interests, and I have no doubt that he'll take action against Iran if it comes to that. One thing that's crystal clear, people, is that we cannot allow this situation to continue. These drones are gathering intelligence, and that is a major national security threat. And if we sit back and do nothing, we risk allowing our adversaries to learn everything they need to carry out a devastating attack. And make no mistake, this is not just some harmless reconnaissance mission. This is a direct threat to American lives, and it's being allowed to happen under the watch of an inept administration. The Pentagon is on high alert, but we as citizens are left in the dark, watching as drones continue to fly over our cities, unchallenged, and all that while President Joe Biden just sits by giving speeches about how we need to work with our allies and focus on diplomacy. This is not a time for diplomacy, people. This is a time for action. We are being tested, and right now it feels like we're failing that test. So what's next? How do we stop these drones? And if it is really Iran, what's the next step? It's clear that we can't afford to sit back any longer. The time for action is now, and under a new administration, things will change. Biden's term cannot come soon enough. The longer we allow this situation to fester, the greater the risk to the American lives. We need leadership that will stand up to threats, not let them fester. We need someone who will protect this country and its people. The drone invasion may be just the tip of the iceberg, and the reckoning is coming. We can only hope that when it does come, we have leaders who will act swiftly and decisively to keep America safe. So thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Brooklynite TV Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. We need to get to the bottom of this situation, and if it's Iran, I think it's safe to say there will be reckoning once a real leader gets in office. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and let's hope we get some real leadership coming soon. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, people.